Big Shanty, Georgia, April 12, 1862, 6 a.m. A northbound train pulls into the small depot for breakfast. The passengers and crew file into the Lacy Hotel. The locomotive, a steam engine called the General, sits unattended on the tracks, steam hissing, 3 boxcars behind it. 8 men stay on the platform. They don't go inside. They're not hungry. They're waiting. The moment the last passenger enters the hotel, these men move, fast. They uncouple the passenger cars from the boxcars. One man climbs into the locomotive cab. The others jump into the boxcars. And they steal the train. The General lurches forward, gathering speed, heading north with 8 Union soldiers and no one pursuing them. Yet. This is the beginning of the Great Locomotive Chase, a daring Civil War raid that would last 7 hours, cover 87 miles, and end with 8 men executed by hanging. The survivors of this mission would become the first recipients of America's highest military honor, the Medal of Honor. This is the story of Andrews' raiders and the train heist that became legend. The plan: destroy the railroad, April 1862. Spring of 1862. The Civil War is 1 year old. Union forces are pushing into Confederate territory, and Major General Ormsby M. Mitchell has his sights set on Chattanooga, Tennessee, a critical railroad junction. But Mitchell has a problem. Chattanooga is easy to reinforce. The Confederates can move troops from Atlanta via the Western and Atlantic Railroad faster than Mitchell can attack. He needs to cut that railroad, disable it, make it impossible for Confederate reinforcements to reach Chattanooga. A civilian scout and spy named James J. Andrews has an idea: steal a train in Georgia and destroy the railroad from the inside. Andrews proposes to lead a small group of volunteers deep into Confederate territory. They'll hijack a locomotive, drive it north toward Chattanooga, and destroy everything in their path: telegraph lines, railroad tracks, bridges, especially bridges. If they can burn the bridges over the Chickamauga Creek and the Tennessee River, the railroad will be cut for weeks or months. It's bold, it's dangerous, and Mitchell approves it. Andrews recruits 22 volunteers from Ohio infantry regiments, the 2nd, 21st, and 33rd Ohio. They're told the mission is voluntary and extremely risky. Soldiers captured in civilian clothes can be hanged as spies. All 22 volunteer anyway. The journey south, April 7th, 1862. On April 7th, 1862, Andrews and his 22 soldiers depart in small groups, traveling in pairs or threes, dressed as civilians. They're posing as Kentuckians, heading south to join the Confederate Army. They take different routes, avoiding suspicion. The plan is to meet in Marietta, Georgia, just north of Atlanta, on April 11th. 4 men don't make it. 2 are captured. 2 oversleep and miss their trains. That leaves 20 Union soldiers, Andrews, and another civilian named William Campbell. By April 11th, they're all in Marietta. They buy tickets for the morning train to Chattanooga. They board separately, pretending not to know each other. Just regular passengers. The train they board is pulled by the General, a 440 American-type locomotive built in 1855. It's a standard passenger train, making regular stops between Atlanta and Chattanooga. At 6 a.m. on April 12th, exactly 1 year after the Civil War began with the firing on Fort Sumter, the train stops at Big Shanty, modern-day Kennesaw, Georgia, for breakfast. And that's when Andrews' raiders make their move. The chase begins 6 o'clock to 7 a.m., the raiders uncouple the general and 3 boxcars from the passenger cars. Andrews climbs into the cab. The others board the boxcars, and they drive away. For several minutes, nobody realizes what's happened. The passengers and crew are inside eating breakfast. By the time someone notices, the general is already miles down the track. But the train's conductor, William Fuller, sees it happen. He watches his locomotive disappear north without him. And he starts running. Fuller and 2 other railroad men chase the train on foot. They run for 2 miles down the tracks before reaching another station where they find a handcar. They jump on and continue pursuing. Meanwhile, Andrews and his men are moving north, stopping periodically to tear up track, cut telegraph wires, and attempt to burn bridges. But everything is working against them. First, it's raining. The wooden railroad ties and bridges are too wet to burn easily. Second, they keep encountering southbound trains. The Western and Atlantic Railroad is single track, meaning only one train can use it at a time. Andrews has to stop, wait for oncoming trains to pass, and explain why he's running north without a passenger car. He claims he's on urgent Confederate business delivering ammunition. Each delay costs them time, and Fuller is still chasing. The pursuit intensifies. 7 a.m., 1 p.m. Fuller abandons the handcar when he finds a small locomotive called the Yonah at a station. He commandeers it and continues the pursuit by steam power. The Yonah takes Fuller to another station where he switches to a larger, faster locomotive, the William R. Smith. And when that locomotive reaches damaged track and can't continue, Fuller runs on foot again until he finds another southbound train. This one is called the Texas. Fuller detaches the Texas from its cars and runs it backward, in reverse, chasing the general north. And the Texas is fast, faster than the general, which is pulling 3 boxcars and stopping to damage track. Andrews' raiders realize they're being pursued. They try to slow the chase by releasing boxcars behind them, hoping to create obstacles. They attempt to set the last boxcar on fire and leave it on a bridge over the Oostenaula River. If the bridge burns, the pursuit ends. But the bridge is too wet from rain. It doesn't burn. The Texas pushes the burning boxcar aside and continues. By 1 p.m., the general is running out of fuel. The raiders haven't had time to refuel properly. They've been constantly moving, constantly sabotaging, constantly evading oncoming trains. Just 18 miles from Chattanooga, where Union lines are waiting, the general runs out of steam. Andrews orders his men to abandon the locomotive and scatter into the woods. The Great Locomotive Chase is over. 7 hours, 87 miles. Mission failed. Capture, trial, and execution. April-June 1862. Within 2 weeks, all the raiders are captured. Confederate forces find them scattered across northern Georgia. Andrews is caught first, still in his civilian clothes. The Confederates put them on trial for acts of unlawful belligerency, essentially being unlawful combatants and spies. Because they were captured in civilian clothing behind enemy lines, they're not treated as prisoners of war. On June 7, 1862, James Andrews is hanged in Atlanta. 7 more raiders, including Privates George D. Wilson and Philip G. Shadrach, are executed on June 18, 1862. They die with extraordinary courage. One witness reports they face death calmly, showing no fear. The remaining raiders are imprisoned. 6 are exchanged in a prisoner swap and released. 8 others make a daring escape from prison and eventually reach Union lines. Private Jacob Parrott, one of those recaptured and held prisoner, is beaten more than 100 times by Confederate interrogators trying to extract information about Union plans. Each time, he refuses to talk. The raid itself has minimal military impact. The Confederates repair the damaged track and telegraph lines within days. Mitchell never captures Chattanooga. It remains in Confederate hands until November 1863. But the raiders' courage is undeniable. They volunteered for a suicide mission, penetrated deep into enemy territory, and fought to complete their objective even when everything went wrong. And the Union government wants to recognize that courage. The First Medal of Honor, March 25, 1863. On July 12, 1862, while the raiders are still in Confederate prisons, President Abraham Lincoln signs a bill creating the Medal of Honor for the Army. It's designed to recognize soldiers who distinguish themselves by their gallantry in action. By March 1863, 6 of the raiders have been released in prisoner exchanges and returned to Union lines. On March 24th, they're interviewed by Judge Advocate General Joseph Holt, who corroborates their mission details with testimony from escaped raiders. On March 25, 1863, the 6 men are invited to the War Department office of Secretary of War Edwin Stanton. After a brief conversation, Stanton announces they'll receive the newly approved Medal of Honor. Private Jacob Parrott, who endured over 100 beatings in Confederate captivity, receives the first Medal of Honor ever awarded. He's 19 years old. The others awarded that day are Sergeant Elihu H. Mason, Corporals William Pittenger and William H. Reddick, and privates William Benzinger, Wilson Brown, and Robert Buffum. All 6 are also offered commissions as first lieutenants. Then they're taken to the White House to meet President Lincoln, establishing a tradition that continues today for all Medal of Honor recipients. Later, all but 3 of the other soldiers who participated in the raid also received the Medal of Honor, some in September 1863, some after the war, and some posthumously. In total, 19 of the 22 soldiers received the medal. The 2 civilians, Andrews and Campbell, are ineligible. And for 161 years, 2 soldiers mysteriously never received the medal, Private George D. Wilson and Private Philip G. Shadrach, both executed in Atlanta on June 18, 1862. The 2024 recognition, July 3, 2024, the White House. President Joe Biden posthumously awards the Medal of Honor to descendants of George D. Wilson and Philip G. Shadrach. After 162 years, all participants in Andrews' raid have finally been recognized. Biden says in the ceremony, through their extraordinary heroism exhibited during the Great Locomotive Chase of 1862, these men demonstrated unyielding courage and bravery in keeping with the highest traditions of military service. The Great Locomotive Chase enters American popular culture. William Pittenger, one of the raiders, publishes several books about the mission. Edison Studios makes a film in 1903. Buster Keaton's silent comedy, The General, in 1927, then becomes a classic. Disney produces The Great Locomotive Chase in 1956. The General itself survives and is displayed at the Southern Museum of Civil War and Locomotive History in Kennesaw, Georgia. The Texas is preserved at the Atlanta History Center. What it means. The Great Locomotive Chase was a military failure. Andrews' raiders didn't destroy the bridges, didn't cut the railroad. didn't help capture Chattanooga. 8 men died for a mission that accomplished nothing strategically. But it established something more important, the standard for American military valor. The Medal of Honor wasn't created for battlefield victories. It was created for extraordinary courage, for soldiers who volunteer for dangerous missions, knowing they might not survive. Andrews's raiders volunteered. They penetrated 200 miles into enemy territory. They stole a train. They fought a 7-hour chase. And when captured, they refused to break under torture and execution. That's why they became the first Medal of Honor recipients. Not because they won, because they tried, because they showed courage worth honoring even in failure. Private Jacob Parrott, the first recipient, was 19 years old. He endured 100 beatings and never talked. That's the standard. The final mile. So here's what happened. On April 12, 1862, 22 Union soldiers stole a Confederate locomotive and tried to destroy a railroad. They failed. 8 were executed. The survivors became the first Medal of Honor recipients. March 25, 1863. The first 6 Medals of Honor are awarded. July 3, 2024. The final 2 are awarded, 162 years late. The Great Locomotive Chase lasted 7 hours. The recognition lasted 162 years. But now, finally, all 22 soldiers have their place in history. The train is in a museum. The raiders are remembered. And the Medal of Honor they established continues to recognize American courage. First awarded for a train robbery, still awarded today for extraordinary valor. That's the legacy of Andrew's Raiders.